If you had to choose tomorrow, you can only fish one lake. Which lake are you choosing? And you can never fish the other one ever again.
Can I be species specific?
Okay, explain. You're gonna love Jason's answer to that question as we head up to the lake that feeds the Lake of the Ozarks, Truman Reservoir. We talk about the history of Truman as well as some of Jason's insider tips about fishing that lake. Watch and learn as Jason teaches us how to troll for crappie, the right gear, his favorite lures, and you might be surprised on Jason's take as he compares fishing at the Lake of the Ozarks to Truman Lake. It was another incredible fishing experience with Smith's Fishing Adventures, so sit back and enjoy. All right, Jason, we are back. It's only been a couple months this time.
I know.
But we're on a whole different lake.
Yeah, different lake for you guys.
So tell us, first of all, we're at Truman Lake. You've already known this by now. Which is the lake that was built to feed and keep the water level at the Lake of the Ozarks.
Correct, yeah, we're a flood control lake up here.
And this is the largest lake in Missouri.
Volume of water. Lake Ozark actually has more shoreline, but by volume of water, this is the largest lake in Missouri, yes.
And you come up here and fish. If you're watching these videos before, Jason lives up on the quiet side of the Lake of the Ozarks, so you're not far from here.
No, I'm about 30 minutes from Truman.
You're not going to come out here and see 50-foot yachts. You're not going to see a lot of
pretty
commercial
peaceful
boats. Yeah. Totally different experience. So we've done catfish a couple of times. We've done paddlefish or spoonbill. And now here we are doing crappie today.
Trolling for crappie today.
Trolling for crappie, which is unique because usually crappie fishing in my life is just dropping a little tube down and on a dock and just trying to find the right level where they're hanging out.
Right. Yeah, no, we don't have any docks here, so we don't have the luxury of shooting docks, and actually we either fish brush or open water. And this time of the year, it's prime for open water, trolling for crappie.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, this is incredible. I'd like to talk a little bit about the lake in and of itself.
Yeah.
So again, I mentioned that this lake was built and it was finished in 1979, and it has become the biggest lake in Missouri. It has one function primarily.
Yeah, it's a flood control lake for Missouri.
It
keeps Lake of the Ozarks from flooding, and actually even bigger than that, we can control if Herman floods or not. If the Missouri River is too high at Herman and we release water through the system, we can flood out Herman. So we can actually hold back enough water to keep Herman from flooding.
And Herman is so far downriver, you've got to go down the Osage to connect to the Missouri.
Yep, to connect to the Missouri and then down the Missouri on 30, 40, 50 miles.
Wow. So there's
a fish on that far left, Rod.
There we go. So this lake, water level wise, is probably much more, it fluctuates compared to Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh yeah, I think we're up, and you can't quote me on this, but I think we're up around 713, 714 right now. And last week we were back down to 705. And all the rain the last couple days we're up feet in the last couple days.
It's not often we get to do these interviews and catch fish. Right on. But this is different.
Awesome. Help you out here. Kind of nice little white crappie here. Yeah. Little keeper. Get him tagged and put him in the live well real quick.
And what I thought was fascinating was, so first of all, Lake of the Ozarks was finished in 1931. This wasn't completed until 1979, but it started in 64. Any idea what took it so long to build this dam?
Not real sure what took so long. I mean, there was a lot of work from end to end that had to be done. I know we're actually, cemetery right behind us.
Really?
These two buoys mark a big hump that's here, and this was Kincaid Cemetery. Yeah, so that they had to relocate this cemetery at that time when they built this lake, and this is just one example of. We'll be at another place today where there was 40 houses sitting right on the side of the lake. So between that and the size of Truman Dam itself, I think it took quite a while.
But then what did they do leading up? So from 31 until 79, I mean that's a long time.
And I don't know that
control the water.
I don't know that they thought it was going to be a problem until it was a problem. And then they had to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And there's multiple lakes that feed into this lake. Stockton Lake feeds this lake. Palm de Terre feeds this lake. Both of those lakes are also flood control lakes. but they're smaller versions of this lake. So they can hold water, dump it into this lake, and then where the majors stop before Lake of the Ozarks, so we don't flood out all the $1 million houses on that lake.
You think that had a lot to do with it? Was the commercialism of the Lake of the Ozarks?
Oh, it had to have been. I mean, once they started putting houses on that lake, if that lake rose like this lake does, because I've seen this lake 25, 30 foot high, we'll go under some bridges where they spray painted lines in 19 that are this far under the bridge. Wow. I mean, boats couldn't go under our bridges, and our bridges, you die jumping off them. They're so high.
Really?
You know, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that this water goes that high.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I've read or heard somewhere that they would literally drain this lake dry to keep the Ozarks at its level.
At its level, yeah. That's crazy.
So what? Obviously, this is pretty much a fishing lake.
Yeah, it's a fishing lake. One more fact of information. At regular pool, 55,000 acres of water. Yep. Okay. At max pool, 250,000 acres of water.
Holy crap.
So we can hold an extra 200,000 acres of water.
Damn.
That's how much land is around this lake that can be flooded out. And another fun fact is it's huntable. It's
I was gonna say,
land.
this is state park, right?
No, some of it's state park, but the rest of it's core land. So I can literally pull my boat up on that shoreline with my hunting gear and go up on the shore and go hunt.
Really?
Anywhere around this lake, for the most part. There's some restrictions, like over here you can't. This is state park, or core park or whatever, and you can't do it there. But
what are people primarily hunting for out here?
Deer, turkey, deer and turkey. Yeah.
No bear or wild cats.
I've seen. To tell you the truth, I've not seen bear on either lake. Either there's pictures on Lake O. There's never been pictures on this lake. And the only bobcats I've ever seen have been on Lake Ozark. I have not seen them on this lake.
Well, probably because there's just not many people up here.
Well, and they're here. I mean, I got friends that hunt here that have killed bobcats. It's just not something that I've had the chance to see up here.
So it's a fishing lake. What's the primary species people are fishing for up here?
Probably crappie.
Really?
I would say. I mean, it's great for bass, crappie, cats. I mean, and walleye. It's known for having a decent walleye population.
But the depth is not as deep as I would have thought. Only 80 feet at max.
Only 80 feet. And that's really most of the lake max is 50, 55.
Yeah.
And
I think it said average was 20, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah, because you get up to the upper end, it's 8 foot in huge areas just as big as this that are only 8, 10 foot.
So the other end of this lake is just run up tributaries?
Yep, so Grand would be Clinton.
Okay.
And then if you go up the Osage, which is the major, it would be Osceola. Is where
this is the Osage River as well.
Not right where we're sitting right here.
Okay.
So the Osage, if you go over there to the dam, that's the Osage.
Yep.
If you go through that chute right there, that's the Grand and Tebow. We're in the Little Tebow here.
Got it.
So that's where we're fishing right now. It's Little Tebow.
So how many rivers are flowing in here?
So this is Four Corners. This was actually, you got Scarrett Creek, which is right there. You got the Little Tebow right here. You got the Tebow and the Grand right there, and the Osage right there.
Damn.
So back in the day, this was, and I'll probably butcher the name, I believe it was Case Slinger's Dam originally.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And that cliff, that big hill over there, you can see the antenna. Everything to the right is Case Slinger Hill or cliff or whatever.
That's what they said. There was a point where you could see where all of the confluence.
They all came together, yes. And that was just right over there.
Yeah. And now it's the visitor center.
And now there's a visitor center up there.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, so you live at the Lake of the Ozarks. You come up here and fish. Which one do you fish more often?
50-50.
Really?
Yeah. I fish this lake a lot. This lake's easier to fish, especially in the summer. The zoo of boats for the pleasure makes it real hard to fish. It's hard to sit in a boat and do this all day and have a fun time fishing.
And that's even happening up on the 60, 70 mile mark.
Yeah, you get all the way up to about the upper 60s, and the big boats go up there. You get up by me, and it's not quite as bad. We do have big boats and, some wake boats, but it's a little more dangerous up there. It did not stick. Something just bit that rod. So it's a little more peaceful on my end of the lake. That's just me turning. Okay. But it's not as enjoyable as how flat this is right now. I mean, and it's like this most of the day. Yeah. You'll see 2 or 3 play boats out there, but nobody's going to come over here and play unless they're on shore swimming,
Yeah. And even then, probably not much during the week.
No, very dead during
the week.
Yeah, there you go. That's a fish.
All right, you said 50-50, you fished both lakes, which if you had to choose tomorrow, you can only fish one lake. Which lake are you choosing? And you can never fish the other one ever again.
Can I be species specific?
Explain.
Okay. Crappie, I'd way rather fish this lake for crappie. Way more crappie, way more easy to fish as far as you don't have to shoot docks. It's a good portion of the year you have to shoot docks. They're under the docks. It's the only place you can really find them. We don't have that problem here. So they're easily accessible. Even if they're in the trees, you can get a boat to them and fish them, right? Second thing, so crappie, this lake. Okay, hybrids, wipers, this lake.
Okay.
Blue cat, I would much rather be Lake all the time. I'd fish that lake. If I didn't have to deal with the boat traffic, I would pick Lake-O for blue cat any day. I've caught way bigger fish and way more big fish out of that lake.
Yeah.
It's not near as pressured because of the boat traffic. A lot of that lake people just don't fish because of boat traffic and a lot of time of the year. So I think it's a way better cat fishery. But for crappie, white bass, that species, this lake. Walleye, that's a really hard one. I would probably have to pick this lake because I think its population's a little better, either though I've had way better success on that lake on certain days. But I only have good success on that lake 2 months of the year. I can probably catch them up here on this lake 6 months of the year.
Which is the better one for bass?
Probably Lake-O.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not much of a bass fisherman anymore. I mean, it's a lot easier to fish this lake for bass, but I think that lake's probably a better bass fishing lake.
Any paddle fish in this lake?
Oh yeah, just as many or more.
Really?
Yeah, you know, so this pet lake's real weird because it is a flood lake. You know, before 19 it had a massive population, and in 19 the lake probably lost half of its fish.
Went down.
Either lived through the dam or died through the dam. Yeah, unfortunately.
And you said
19
on our last
that was the
excursion,
big flood.
Our last excursion, which was paddlefish, the paddlefish run up to the Warsaw Dam and drop their eggs.
Yep, to that dam right there. They can't get above that dam. And these fish run up multiple rivers. And some of these rivers still get into Kansas, into their natural breeding grounds that they were able to breed in. So some of the fish in this lake that make it up those particular rivers can still possibly breed. And conservation does believe that they do, some fish still do naturally breed in this lake.
Let's talk about crappie for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, obviously, so crappie is a much smaller fish. This is different. I was just telling the guys this is a different experience, that we're not stopping to hold up fish and take pictures. Because these aren't huge fish. Many would argue the best eating fish.
Yep.
You said you prefer blue cat, but no walleye.
I prefer walleye number one. Blue cat would be 2, and crappie would be my 3rd.
Now, a lot of people do say crappie's the best tasting fish. So what is the size of the crappie we're typically catching on?
9 to 15 inches on the side of the lake. We don't catch many over 15 inches, and not many over 14 inches probably.
What's the weight of a big crappie?
A big crappie in this lake, over 3.
Wow.
And that's big, and that's very seldomly caught, but there was several caught this winter. This time of the year, those 3-pound crappie ain't gonna be 3 pounds. Those 3-pound crappie then are probably gonna be more like 1.25 pounds now because of the weight they lose during spawn time.
Got it.
Yeah.
They're exercising more?
Yeah.
Chasing tail?
Yeah, exactly, right. Having babies and not eating, and they still eat that time of year. It's just they lose a lot of weight in the whole mating aspect. I mean, they get paper thin, it seems like.
So what is the best time of year to catch them at that big?
When you want them jumbo, late winter, early spring, right before the spawn. Some white bass feeding right over here.
I know, I've been seeing that.
Yeah, they're just now starting to hit surface. I mean, I haven't seen it 2 or 3 times yet this year where they've really hit good fish on the surface like they are there. So that's another species in this lake, white bass. And this lake's probably far superior for white bass than Lake Ozark. Yeah.
Now, as far as keeper size, what is the size that you can keep a crappie?
9 inches plus.
Okay.
Our limit. Are you at 15 fish? 9 inches plus.
15 fish per person?
Per person, yes.
9 inch plus. All right, Jason, let's get into the gear. Let's get into what we're using here. So what kind of gear and what methods are you using to fish for crappie this time of year?
2 different methods this time of the year. Right now we're trolling crankbaits, so we're fishing with, let me get one of these guys out of here, I'll just show you. This is a Bandit 300. I fish with multiple styles of baits, Arkies, Bandits, Kevin Van Dam 3XDs. Pretty much running anywhere between 8 and 14 foot this time of year is what I like to troll. I'm using just cheap $20 Daiwa trolling rods because they got a good flex. We can see it when they're getting hit. And I like these cold water convector line counters so I can get a specific amount of line that I like to let out. Right now we're running about 104 feet out of that rod. Anywhere between 80 and 110 is typically where I'm running my rods this time of year. Other methods we're doing, I use the live scope, which is on the front of my boat. We're single pulling crappie. I like to use 1/4 ounce jig head this time of year, this particular jig head. Mine has a little wire keeper. Today, we're gonna be using some Palmer custom baits. Strongest bait on the market. I mean, by far a way superior bait to any other company. I'm gonna show you how these little wire keepers work. Put this through the bait. That little wire keeper goes in there, and that little wire keeper keeps that bait just like the barb on your hook from sliding down. We literally catch 50 to 100 crappie on one bait before we have to make a bait change. I usually lose them on trees before I ever lose a bait to a fish. So just a good company to check out. We're doing these on single poles. I use 11 and 13 foot rods on the front of my boat, and we're targeting brush this time of year. So kind of in a transition where these open water crappie are starting to move to brush piles. So I can actually catch these fish both methods. A couple days ago, me and actually one of the owners of Palmer Custom Baits went out. We caught about 100 fish that day, and 30 to 50 of them were over a pound. I mean, just absolutely jumbo fish, one after another. So there's multiple methods you can use, but single poling with the live scope and trolling crankbaits is my two go-tos this time of year.
Where does somebody get, if they're not familiar with Palmer's, where can they get Palmer's from?
They have a website. I believe it's just, let me see if it's on the package actually. Right here. I'll do a little.
Yep. All right.
If you're not familiar with their baits, I would check these guys out. Real good bait company.
Fish on?
Yeah, we have fish right here on 3. Here you go, sir. One more thing I want to show you guys while we're looking at our crappie here. Little crappie stringers we're using. These are made by crappienut.com. My buddy Glenn Wilson makes these. These are a great crappie stringer. Multiple reasons. I used to have the old style crappie stringer, and I'm going to show you the #1 problem with the old and the new. This crappie stringer right here, if I drop it in the lake, that thing floats, even with the tag on the bottom. And I'm trolling right now, throw it off the bottom. But these things 100% float if you drop it in the water. I dropped 4 or 5 of my other ones in the water, they were gone. They come in multiple colors. I carry 15, so when my 15 fish are caught, I know because my color's gone. And once again, these are made by crappienut.com, probably one of the coolest little fish stringers I've ever had. So makes it real easy to identify whose fish is whose, how many fish we've caught.
All right, so we've caught a couple white bass now while crappie fishing.
Teach you a couple things about white bass that are just identify white bass the easiest way. Light lines, okay? Any hybrid or striper is gonna have real dark, straight lines. There's a few other ways, Patch says on tongue, but the easiest way is light lines, okay? All your other hybrids and stripes will have really dark sidebars. Second thing about these fish, these fins are needles, and this gill right here, it's even serrated. And this one's a razor blade too, but this one's really bad, and it's serrated. You can feel the serrades in that. I don't know if you can see them, but it's literally serrated, yeah. And they'll slice the crap out of you if you get into them. So they're not too bad table fare. A lot of people absolutely love these fish, and this is their favorite fish to target. They fight really well. I don't eat them, but I eat so many other delicious fish that usually they get the pass, but today they don't get the pass, so we're gonna keep us a few. Well, we had a good day crappie fishing today. I'm gonna give a little tutorial on how we clean our crappie. I use a Rapala lithium. Love this knife. Paired with the shark blade, it's got a low profile. Low profile, for people that don't use a knife like this, is actually when you cut a crappie and you get up here behind the head, that low profile allows me to turn when I'm under here. So I can turn my knife and get that fillet up under the head, and I get all that extra bite of meat up there with that profile of that knife. That's what that knife's designed for, is to turn under the head. A lot of these fish, I'll show you real quick. This fish right here did not spawn this year. It is actually reabsorbing its eggs. We had a lot of fish in this lake not spawn this year, and a lot of it has to do with water conditions. Right during the 2 weeks that they normally spawn, our lake dropped about 5 to 6 feet. And whenever it did that, these fish won't lay their eggs up on a bank they know is going to go dry. So instead of laying elsewhere, these fish didn't spawn and they just absorbed their eggs. So I'm going to tell you about half the fish we're catching this year did not spawn their eggs.
What does that mean?
It's going to be a bad hatch this year.
Absorb their own eggs.
Yeah, they did. All fish will, and I say all fish like I know. I believe all fish, and I know paddlefish will do it, will reabsorb their eggs. So there is a lot of fish that will reabsorb their eggs. And a lot of these female crappie this year did that.
So they're basically eating their own eggs?
Yeah, their body's just reabsorbing it into the system. And then I'll find, if I find one that actually hatched, I'll show you this one. This one's kind of iffy. No, usually it's like a darker yellow when they actually hatch, and they're just gonna be little bitty ovaries.
All right, Jason, we got into what, about 40 crappie today?
About 40 crappie. A little slow, but not a bad day.
Somebody wants to get you booked. How are they getting connected with you?
Smith's Fishing Adventures on Facebook. My website is mofishingguide.com, and you can call me at 573-268-4082.
How long is crappie season good for?
Man, I'm going to be catching crappie all the way till next year. It's good every day of the year almost.
This is season right now, crappie.
Yeah, all through summer. You know, I pretty much don't blue catfish this time of the year. They spawn, so I crappie all the way till I would say probably September before I really grab another catfish rod. So
that's awesome. So what's next for us?
Single pole and crappie. I'm gonna have you guys back, and we're gonna go out and single pole some crappie here in a month or two.
Awesome. We're gonna watch it go down. We're gonna watch our baits go down in the water. And
we're gonna watch those fish eat, and then we're gonna pull them fish out the whole time while we're watching them.
Stay tuned. Thanks again, brother.
No problem. Good having you.